Outdoors Queensland respectfully acknowledges traditional owners of the lands, waters and sky where we gather across the state and across Australia. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important roles that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play in all these places that have been used for outdoor activities for countless generations. I'm in Brisbane, or Meanjin, on Yagara country, which is a place of the Jagera and Turrbal peoples. If you'd like to, you can pop in the chat the place and the country that you're joining from today. Outdoors Queensland also acknowledges funding provided by Queensland Government to support outdoor activities across the state, including funding to Outdoors Queensland. And we acknowledge the work that various government departments and ministers do regarding outdoor activities, including sport and recreation team who are within the Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport. Welcome to another session of Coffee and Conversation. My name is Dom Courtney. I'm Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland. Our Operations Manager, Mark Squires, is the co-host for today's session, as he often is. So welcome to everyone for another session, particularly members of Outdoors Queensland, plus others who are joining us. I saw Renee is joining us. Renee works for Outdoors Victoria, so welcome, Renee. Recordings of these sessions are available on our website via YouTube, and this is our 21st episode of Coffee and Conversation for 2021. So thank you for joining us, and yeah, for another session. A bit of an agenda there. We'll go through a few of the recurring topics and reminders and some public consultation before we get on to the other topics, including good old impacts of COVID on the outdoor world. So firstly, the Outdoors Queensland Awards for 2021. So finalists were announced in mid-September. The awards presentation is going to be from 6 o'clock next Friday, the 29th of October. It's really a celebration and recognition of excellence right across the Queensland outdoors sectors. And you'll be able to join the event via Facebook Live. So really would like to encourage as many people as possible to join us. We're looking forward to a great night. We've got Riley Edwards from Climbing QTs as our guest speaker. Riley spoke a little while back now on Inside the Outhouse, and she did a great job. So we asked her if she'd like to join us as our guest speaker as well. So I just saw David's comment, what's the dress code and who's hosting the bar? Well, it's BYO in relation to the bar, and dress code is how you would feel comfortable as far as we're concerned. So Mark's just shared a link to the page there, and I think there's the link to the Facebook Live on there, Mark, or is that coming soon? Just put him on the spot.
Sorry, my mute button was hidden. No, if you go to Facebook, Outdoors Queensland Facebook page, there is a link to an event for that night, and the link to the live thing will appear there very shortly, possibly later on this afternoon. But certainly everybody is welcome to come and join us on Facebook Live, watch what's going on, have a party at home, do your thing. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really good night. And I do need to acknowledge the sponsors. I put the logos along the bottom of the screen there. Obviously, they're important to us to make sure we can deliver the event, and their support for the awards does make a big difference. So it's an important part of the awards there. It's just got there, Queensland Government, Brisbane City Council, K2 Basecamp and Active Queenslanders Industry Alliance, as well as Nature Play Queensland sponsoring different awards. So we do appreciate that. The next one I just wanted to flag was our Great Getaways Queensland program. we've run the first activity day for that one, which was at Camp Warrawee at Joiner. That was in September. And then we've got our first overnight experience. It's going to be at the Sunshine Coast Rec Centre on the 5th to the 7th of November. So, Mark, did you want to speak to this, or I'm happy to, up to you, mate.
Well, I'll say a couple of words. Yes, so the first weekend, as Dom said, 5th to 7th of November at Curramundi at the Queensland Rec Centre. There are still places available. So if you know some older Australians who'd appreciate a weekend away, tell them about it, get them booked in. And, the program we've got planned looks quite exciting. We're going to got a bit of a campfire out there, we've got a bit of canoeing, a bit of time on the beach. The accommodation at the Queensland Rec Centre, if you haven't been there, is for us what is essentially a school camp. It's pretty flash. So certainly meets our indoor comfort, outdoor fun sort of slogan for these events. But we'd love to see you along there. Get online, book in. I've just shared the link to the web page. You'll find the ways to book in, links to the medical declaration form and gear lists there as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, and if everyone who doesn't know, so Australian Camps Association have been running great getaways in Victoria since 2014, and we're working with the ACA to roll it out here in Queensland. So as Mark said, if you know anyone who's interested, or you're interested in joining the program, please check out the website. We're also planning the events for next year. So if you're interested in hosting a camp or providing services for an activity day, please get in touch with us. And we were fortunate enough to have funding under the Queensland Government's Active Kit program to roll this out, or basically seed funding for this program. So that's also an important part of it. It's about supporting us to get this project going, this program going. So, yeah. Thanks for sharing that link, mate. Moving right along, a couple of upcoming events and public consultation. The Inside the Outhouse, the next session, I think, is next Monday, Dave. It's doing back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. David Maskell here, currently sitting at Somerset College this morning, but in my other hat, one of the oligarchs and inside the Outhouse. Last week, we had the fortunate to have Cherie Bagley from the Association of Experiential Education come into the room and talk about the national conference. Just a reminder, if you're interested in joining their international Zoom based conference, prices go up 1st of November. And next week, back-to-back weeks, we're going to be having Wholesome Food Calculator. So John Canman, who's the owner and operator of that online service, again, direct from the States. He's going to come in and talk about menu building. Is it a trick or is it a treat? So we've framed in a bit of a Halloween theme, given it's coming up to the Halloween period in North America. And we'll be talking, it's an amazing bit of software he's created. And for those of us who still spend a huge amount of time, including myself, with Excel spreadsheets, looking at menus, looking at quantities, looking at dietary alternatives, this is the guy to come and listen to. He's got an amazing platform, and definitely worth jumping into the Outhouse. 6:13 p.m. in Queensland, and 5:16 p.m. in Queensland, 6:13 p.m. Everywhere else in the country. I hate daylight savings. Thanks, Dom.
Not quite everywhere else, mate, but people will make their own calculations. Let's say 5:13 Australian Eastern Standard Time, or Queensland time, which is all that is important, as you know, Renee. 6:13 for Southerners, and everyone can work it out.
I have all the times on the website. So if you just go to the website, you'll see them all there, and you'll be able to work it out. We can't work it out, but it's there.
Yeah, the computer works it out for us. That's what we need. Sherry, who joined from the US on Monday, what was Monday evening our time, I think it was something like 3:15 in the morning for her when she joined, which was a pretty big effort. So yeah, well done on having her join. She was certainly, it was great to hear her speak about the upcoming international conference. So well done, Dave. And it sounds an interesting session next week. The other one's just to flag there, this joint Queensland and Australian government support package for Queensland businesses which includes non-employing sole traders now. It's about the impact from the short lockdown that we had. The advice is that every eligible business that applies will be successful on that. So it's worth applying for if you are eligible, but applications are going to close in November. I've got the dates there on the screen. So just check it out if you are eligible, check out if you're eligible as a business, because that's one that the government has been very, I think, generous with trying to overcome the impacts of that short lockdown that we did have. I should have said, Renee, it's wonderful. As of 1 minute to midnight last night, Victoria's lockdown, I don't know if it's ended or it's easing, but well done. It's great to see. So, yeah.
A bit of a freedom day for us. That's how everyone's looking at it, because not all retail's open yet, but you can at least go sit and have a coffee. So big things. Small things are big things.
That's the critical thing to any Victorian, is you can go back and get your coffee. I spoke to my brother-in-law, lives down in Melbourne, and that was his key observation after his morning walk with his dogs this morning, was there's a lot of cafes open again. That was his celebration. So yeah, it's great to see. And obviously a lot of people have done it pretty tough, or very tough, for the last however many months, and well done on the work that I guess the community's done to get things back on track. I wanted to flag the bushfire and severe weather guidance note as well. That's the Outdoor Council of Australia published that in May. I mentioned it last session. It's available on the OCA website. It's about planning for severe weather. Funnily enough, we had a little bit of a storm rolling through Brisbane this morning while I was putting this slide, updating it. But yeah, there's been quite a few severe storms in Queensland and other states in the last few weeks. So we need to plan ahead for severe weather. It's this guidance note, it's not about a response note if you suddenly hit severe weather during outdoor activity. It's about when you're in the planning phase, and that's what it says, a reference there. So that one is available on the OCO website. A couple of other ones, the sport and rec funding opportunities, the Active Industry Project Fund. This one it's for state level sport and rec organisations. So just wanted to flag it. And it closes on the 3rd of November. So time is ticking on that one. Outdoors Queensland's also eligible for that one. So we are looking at putting an application in on that to help us provide more services to help members increase delivery of outdoor activities. So hopefully some of that will come through as well if we're successful. And this second one is actually about infrastructure projects to enhance participation levels at community level. So this one's more aimed at clubs and that side of things, but there is a co-contribution aspect to that as well. So you need to check out the guidelines and the eligibility for that one, which closes the 5th of November. It's again Sport and Rec Queensland. So I just wanted to flag that one again. So time again is ticking on that, a couple of weeks to go. Can't believe we ripped through all those. COVID protocols and restrictions, as we tend to spend a lot of time. If you have anything else you want to talk about, please say so. The roadmap was updated. I think it was actually during our session last fortnight. They republished it just to make my information as out of date as possible while we were talking. So we're currently at stage 3. I didn't get to update this morning. I don't think there's been any change published today. We had 0 cases today, but we had a case yesterday. So that case was the concern about that because of potential community time spent in the community. But yeah, so this one is we're at stage 3 with those restrictions, which I think, yeah, we're in a very fortunate position. The big push is obviously about the vaccinations, which is actually in that new normal at the bottom there now. So the last, I think, icon at the bottom there is get vaccinated. So there's obviously the big push on there, and they're rolling out vaccination hubs in schools as well across Queensland as another way of coming to the community with the vaccinations, which is good to see. Yeah, I think that's the key thing, that new normal along the bottom, which we've talked about multiple times. So I don't know if there's any questions about it, happy to go through it, but there's still the South East Queensland mask requirements, which is a bit more than the rest of Queensland.
Just more looking forward, Dom, there's that comment there about businesses can elect to serve only the vaccinated or without restrictions, or be more inclusive, shall we say, and continue with restrictions. So I think that what those restrictions will be an interesting space to watch.
Yep, completely agree, mate. I think that's also on the next slide I've got here, which is the border reopenings. It also specifically has a comment about that, which is this one here, which is the government described as the vaccine plan to unite families, which is the plan for the borders and domestic travel particularly. So that restrictions there, it talks about from 80% additional public health restrictions will apply to unvaccinated people, with details to be confirmed. And there it says venues and events and I blew this up just because I think that wording is important. Venues and events who require all patrons and staff to be vaccinated may be able to operate without public health restrictions, but venues and events which allow unvaccinated people may continue to be subject to a range of public health restrictions, such as capacity and density limits. So I think that's that key point on that one that I wanted to pull out of that. This only was released on Monday, I think it was. I think the big pit is going to be what is the effect of this, particularly for outdoor education, also for outdoor recreation, so clubs and that sort of thing, particularly in the outdoors where there have been basically no restrictions for fully outdoor activities. You know, it hasn't even been considered a restricted business, so it could get on with it. For some of our operations, the indoor aspects are still considered restricted businesses at the moment in the public health direction. But this is going to be the question there of what this is going to mean once we hit that 80%, which on the screen there, it says 17th of December or earlier. And that's the projections, I think, based on vaccine rates. So I'd be really happy to talk about that if anyone wants to, you know, has an opinion on what this might actually mean. I think the key part of it for particularly outdoor education is going to be that they're talking there about the 80% of eligible population, and eligible, it says somewhere in there about, so that there's a box there, I didn't blow this one up, but for the purposes of vaccination coverage, eligible population is people aged 16 and older, blah, 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 in accordance with the Commonwealth Government definitions. So I think that's going to make things interesting, particularly for businesses that the prime participants are kids. So I'm not 100% sure what the rollout of that's going to look like. Just sort of David, how's the Queensland Government looking to prove the double vaccination? On one of the, I think that question came up, I think it was Tuesday in the press conference, David, and they said they're actually looking at modifying the Check in Queensland app to have the vaccination status on there. I don't think that's happened yet. But I did notice they rolled out an upgrade of the Check in Queensland app just recently. It now actually has some pretty cool features, like you don't have to, for the places that you go to regularly, you can click a button without having to scan the QR code at that place. You can just click a button and it's got the code in it and you can just say, yeah, I'm here now. So they are working on that app, and I think they're actually making it more user friendly. So it might stop some of the, you know, queuing up just to get to the QR code on the wall. There is actually, it looks like they've improved that. I only noticed that this morning.
It's potential, I think, for the sector's perspective, for those who work between, say, here in New South Wales, if the New South Wales government are doing a different way of proving it to the Queensland government, it's going to be the blue card, working with children check saga all over again. And I'm not advocating we all go to one national, you know, card or identification thing, because that has a whole bunch of connotations. that's been addressed in the past. But yeah, I've worked in a state for many, many years, going in and out as a freelancer, and you've got to, you've only got 2 weeks in some places to be able to work before you've got to get their equivalent, bit of organizational working with children check. And I appreciate why they do it, but it's silly. And if they're going to do the same thing with, you've got to have the New South Wales QR code, you've got to have the Queensland one. It just seems like they need to come together and have a recognition of the cross-border issues.
Yeah,
if I can make a comment in there as well. You can download your certificate, Backstage Certificate from MyGov and keep it on your phone.
Yeah, it loads directly to your Apple Wallet.
Does that as well? You're
there,
right.
It actually gives you the option at the moment to upload it to the Victorian check-in app, direct from MyGov. So I suspect once that is there for Queensland, it will be the same. It will upload to the check-in Queensland app. But yeah, as I said, my observation is very few people are actually using the check-in app. You stand at the front of a Coles and for 5 minutes and have a look how many people are using it. It's probably 1 in 10.
That's a real worry.
On the Sunshine Coast is my observation. So
yeah, I'd agree with you, Andrew. I'm up here as well, and I would say the same thing. You look like you're the odd person out when you stop to check in.
Well, keep being the odd person out. Let's have more checking in. As
we do not need a lockdown. Thanks very much.
Exactly. Yeah. Danny just popped in the chat that ACA has got a webinar coming up on employee vaccinations and your business, with a lawyer and the legal risks. So I'd certainly encourage you to check that out. It's actually one of the slides coming up again is just discussion and about the vaccination side of things. Thanks for sharing that, Danny.
Would that though be a Victorian focus? Victorian legal system rather than
they're already standing people down in Victoria because their 15th of October was the cutoff for the essential workers, and accommodation got rolled up in that. So I've talked to a few sites this week that are actually standing staff down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I think that's happening in New South Wales as well. And then I don't know if everyone saw it, but WA announced something this week that it basically effectively says 3/4 of their population become, I think the term they used was authorised workers who need to be vaccinated, and it covers 3/4 of the workforce of WA. It's pretty amazing what they're doing, and I think that's really the kick up the pants to get people to actually get vaccinated. That is a better way of doing it than, as David said, need a good lockdown to fix it. That seems to get people getting vaccinated. Let's hope we don't have one of them, and we can keep doing the work and getting people outdoors and active and actually keeping people engaged in what we're doing. So I think that obviously the sooner this vaccination gets to these levels, and Queensland sadly is a long way behind some of the other states, which is partly through our good fortune with not having lockdowns, but yeah, I think the sooner we can get to these vaccination levels, the better, just as far as some certainty for the future. The interesting bit, sorry, I didn't really get through this, but this is very relevant for staff moving across borders as well. It is talking about in here that, it's the 70, 80 and 90% fully vaccinated, but it also only works for travellers coming from interstate have to be fully vaccinated. So if that's actually going to be one of those ones that if you want to come and not do quarantine, then you need to have the full vaccination. Once it gets to, I think that's at 70%, you still have to do home quarantine, which is they're flagging from 19th of November. And then from 80% of the eligible population, it's no quarantine required. If you're fully vaccinated, have a negative test before you come. So that's pretty impressive, that one, once we get to that point. And then the 90% is even, even stronger, I suppose. No restrictions on entry to Queensland, no quarantine required. There's not even, if you're fully vaccinated, you don't even have to have a test to go across the border. So that's getting to the point of what we probably would have thought about previously as far as what we consider normal. And then it says there's different rules if you're not fully vaccinated then. So I think there's, even without full mandates on the vaccination, once it gets to this 80%, it is going to be sort of two-speed between people who are fully vaccinated and people who aren't. And again, I think that they're trying to put the message out there that the more people who are vaccinated, it'll be a stronger position for the community as a whole, but also it'll be better for you as an individual. So it seems to be a two-pronged approach to it. I think they certainly acknowledge there's, as far as trying to get to 90%, it does seem to be, I saw your comment, Andrew, it does seem to be an aspirational target, but I guess that's what the government's got to have to get to that point. That's what they're saying, but at the moment, that's the advice on if you want to have no restrictions on entry to Queensland and no quarantine for people who are fully vaccinated. They want our population 90% fully vaccinated. It's a big target, but I think.
Dom, is there parity? And I probably should have been in the New South Wales meeting an hour ago, but is there parity going the other way? So if I took a group of students to northern New South Wales, because I'm based on the Gold Coast, obviously I'd have to do the research on it because it changes daily, but is there parity between the borders and what the governments are saying about restrictions around, you know, the stuff you've highlighted there, or is it really not?
I'm not sure on the New South Wales rules at the moment, mate. I didn't get to join the Outdoors New South Wales ACT session at 9 o'clock as well, but they've generally been, you know, for a long time, New South Wales was saying, what do you mean? We've never closed our borders. It's only something you crazy states do. So I think it's more been our way where it's a problem. But yeah, I think we would need to check the conditions and everything else. I guess the problem becomes also, like, this is specifically that green box that's on the screen. It talks about arriving from a hotspot. That's what those areas are about. So if it says arriving from all other areas of Australia, at 70%, which is 19th of November, it already says, if you've not been in a hotspot in 14 days, no restrictions on entries to Queensland, no quarantine. So that's the situation. So right now, WA, South Australia, who aren't declared as hotspots, you know, and the Northern Territory, right now, or sorry, not right now, once we get to 70%, they're saying that's going to be the rules for entry to Queensland. So no restrictions and no quarantine. And that doesn't even say if you're fully vaccinated. So they are, I think, but I'm not sure what the situation. I'm pretty sure New South Wales will still be declared a hotspot. So once we get to that 19th of November, it's still going to be it's arrived by air only is the problem. So you got to, yeah, the 80% one.
And is that adults only, 18 plus, 16 plus, 12 plus? I have a year level in the junior school that goes to New South Wales for a camp.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's on this page. I think it is somewhere there that actually says, yeah, so it says, it's hard to read, mate, but under the fully vaccinated bit, it says people who cannot be vaccinated, for example, those who are not eligible due to age or have an exemption from a qualified medical practitioner, will be treated as vaccinated for the purposes of entry and quarantine requirements. So, you know, if you're talking 10-year-olds, then they are considered automatically fully vaccinated if they're not eligible for a vaccine right now. So yeah, for that, and I was very happy to see that one because I had a similar question, and even thinking about it from, you know, families traveling, if the parents are fully vaccinated, what happens with the kids? And I'm wondering what happens if you have a 16-year-old. I think a 16-year-old is eligible, therefore they need to be fully vaccinated to fit into those spots. So yeah. Andrew just posted QCCC Tambourine or Noosa can help you out too, David, instead of heading to New South Wales, I think was the suggestion. Keep it local, mate, the live local world. Yeah, so any other questions on that? This is a new one and it does take a little bit of digging into, and you know, as far as the new public health directions and everything, I think is going to be interesting too. Just wanted to flag again with the COVID safe plan that's been out of the play for a long time. COVID safe checklists for anyone who's got indoor activities, indoor spaces, need to have those checklists happening, should all be in place and working. this restrictions, the public health direction, we're up to number 29 now. That was updated 2 weeks ago. And there is still that specific exemption to the occupant density requirements for school-aged children. My question is going to be what happens with the public health direction once we get to that 70 and 80% markers, because that's where it comes back to that one a couple of slides back that Andrew referenced, is depending on whether your business accepts only fully vaccinated or vaccinated and unvaccinated people, there could be changes, and that's a worry. And that's one that I'm trying to follow up at the minute. Would appreciate comments on that, thoughts on what that looks like. Is it even practical to, as a business, say we're only, as a particularly school camps, I suppose, but it's also going to apply to, you know, outdoor operators who have indoor elements to their businesses. And I'm not even sure what the situation is if you don't have any. If you just say you're a bushwalking club, everything you do is outdoors, you don't have meetings in a hall, what happens with that? If people are unvaccinated, are there tighter restrictions on your business when you're purely doing outdoor activities? And I don't know what the answer is to that yet.
Our perspective, Dom, is if the restrictions that they're talking about are similar to what they are at the moment, which is 2 meters squared, don't apply to sleeping areas, face masks for the unvaccinated, that sort of thing, we'd try and go down that road because it saves us the drama of 100% vaccinated staff, for one. And secondly, just the difficulty of checking whether people are vaccinated. That's kind of our thinking. Even if it was 2 meters squared for all, like even for school-age students, that's doable. If it went up to 4 meters, or if it starts applying to sleeping areas, that's where it becomes really problematic. So,
so
it would be great. It would be great to have some advocacy in that space to know what that looks like.
Yeah, I think
we've probably got until February, you know, or 23rd of January.
Yeah, I think every
24.
industry group is currently saying, what do you mean by different restrictions? So yeah, it's certainly a question that as soon as I read that, I was like, okay, you know, what does that really mean? And I don't think it's not even, you know, published yet. It actually says on that, what's not a roadmap, whatever it is, the reopening borders one, it says details to be provided, sort of thing. I think it's a statement there at the moment, but the details to be worked out is a critical part of it. So we'd definitely be engaging in advocacy on that one. So the current number 29 does have this the exemption to the occupant density rules, as the previous ones have, which is terrific. And similarly, the exemption to the Check in Queensland app is also carried over into 29, which is specifically, again, venues as part of, so for school camps, etc., excursions, don't have to use check-in app for school-aged children, but do for adults, as it's been for quite a while. And that only works not for organised by people in private capacity, like a birthday party, etc. The other one, the Education Queensland COVID-19 planning framework, that was updated in late August. That's still the current version on their website. And under that, state schools can go on camps and excursions at Department of Ed facilities and non-Department of Ed facilities with that, as long as the venue's got the COVID safe checklist in place. However, if there's a local government lockdown or a statewide lockdown, then camps are off the table completely, or the school is closed due to COVID, which would be expected, I suppose, and let's touch wood. We don't have to worry about that at the minute, or we don't have to worry about it at the minute. Vaccination, here we go. That old chestnut. And again, as Danny said, the ACA webinar, ACA is Australia-wide, so there might be, you know, based in Victoria, but I would be surprised if it's not, you know, talking about the different jurisdictions. Some of the mandatory stuff that has been rolled out, you know, I think quite a while back, the Commonwealth Government mandated vaccination for residential aged care workers. the New South Wales government announced it for that teachers are in the mandatory vaccination group if they're going to return to face-to-face teaching. I think the Victorian government, Renee, I might be wrong, but I think the term used is authorised workers in Victoria. So they've got a group of people who need vaccinations to keep working. And as I said earlier, the media reports are about WA's announcement this week, which apparently has the effect that about 3/4 of their workforce will actually require vaccinations to continue doing those roles. I think that's partly to encourage people to get vaccinated to try to overcome the slow vaccination rates they've got. I guess the big question is what's going to happen in Queensland in this space, particularly for our industry or sectors about outdoor organisations, including school camps and others, what this is going to really look like. The Fair Work Ombudsman have got some really good information out there, and they keep updating. I've mentioned this page the last few sessions, but they literally have updated again this week. So it's a really good resource. It's very comprehensive about how it works. And I think they're trying to update it as different governments put different situations or mandates in place. There's a big section there about whether an employer can require employees to be vaccinated. And it talks about specific laws like public health orders by a state or territory if you require an employee to be vaccinated, and different areas of it. And it's really valuable, but the key point about this is about the responsibility to provide a safe workplace for your employees and for your visitors to your site, but also that it is important to consider getting legal advice before, if you're even considering making vaccinations mandatory in your workplace. So that's really the bottom line of this one, that do your research and even get advice, individual professional advice on this one, because it's an important point. I think it's going to be, there's a few different legal cases going on already. I think a couple have gone as test cases at the federal level. So there's certainly a lot of work going on in this space because it's such a hot issue at the moment. I just saw Tanya's comment. I haven't got an image, are there, Tanya? You said an image came which surprised you.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I tried to share up above. I don't know if it came through or not because I've never shared it before. It says APS vaccination info, PNG. Did that come through at all?
Oh, sorry, yeah, there's a link there. Yeah, right.
Does that work? I've never shared an image before, so I don't know. But to summarize it, what happened was, obviously I work more in a space of therapy camps.
Yeah.
But we had a webinar with the Australian Psychological Society recently, and this summarises it basically. And I guess what surprised me was I was thinking, as an industry where you would think that mental health would be a critical need, that maybe those who are unvaccinated could still have access to it. They're pretty much trying to push us to encourage for them to have telehealth and not to come in. So that surprise, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but just the direct nature of the communication in the webinar, and you can see in that image, surprised me because I thought that would be an industry where they would continue to allow an openness, I guess. Anyway, that's probably my naivety, but I was just really quite surprised because I thought that we would be with people with significant mental health presentations would still be able to access services.
Yeah, I might just share that. I'll just stop. What have I done here? I'll just stop my screen share and I'll share that one instead, and I'll see if this will come through. So can you see that now?
Yes, I can.
Yep. So if that's coming through, all right. Yeah. So it talks about employer requirements must be followed. This is about private practice. You can require confirmation of vaccination status and collect to service only vaccinated patients. Yeah, right. So psychologists should, in capital letters, be vaccinated, with the reasons being you could be sued for negligence and don't put your patients at risk of transmission.
Really quite strong wording, I thought, anyway, but
certainly is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just coming from one sector, but I would have thought we would be a sector. I thought we would have been a sector that would have been a little bit more open to supporting people with their mental health, regardless if I was vaccinated or whether my clients were vaccinated, as long as we took similar restrictions to what we're taking at the moment.
Yeah. So that's from the College of Education and Development Psychologists.
Correct, at the Australian Psychological Society. And I just thought, because it has that link as well to educational component, it's a bit of a stretch, but yeah, it's better. It matches the so most of our, it's a bit like being a member of Outdoors Queensland. So most of us are members of Australian Psychological Society if you're a psychologist. And so it's not specific to the development, educational psychologists. And so it's for all psychologists, a webinar was applicable.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting infographic that they've put there, but it is very strongly worded. I guess that that shows that push, doesn't it? And then it does say, take reasonable care, protect staff and patients from risk of infection, identify alternative effective measures to minimise risk, which I guess is what it comes down to at the end of the day, and about providing, as I was saying, about the safe workplace for workers and participants. But yeah, thanks for that, Tanya.
I guess for me, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know. Sorry, I've only just jumped into the workshop, but for me, I just wonder how much this impacts this particular sector, and how many staff. Like, are we doing? You probably spoke about this in the first 30 minutes. Sorry, but are we doing like an staffing or industry consult around, if we do this becomes mandated, how many staff members, and is this going to impact? For me, it's certainly about 20% of my workforce, but I'm very small.
Yeah. We had a little bit of a chat about this and talked about, in some areas, some other states particularly, people are being stood down from work if they're not double vaccinated because of the mandates that have come in by different states. I think the key piece is going to be, what's going to be the real impact for, and it's industry-wide impact, but it's also organisation by organisation and the ability to deliver the services that are on offer currently, and what's going to happen once it happens. And it really is going to be interesting. The other one's the changes to rules about if you only accept clients who are fully vaccinated, there will be different restrictions on your organisation compared to if you accept anyone. And that's in the stuff that just came out this week, but we don't have details of what those different restrictions might look like. So it's certainly something, and we talked about, we'll be trying to do some advocacy to understand those differences in restrictions, and also hope to, I guess, ensure that the different restrictions that are in place don't mean that, are still make it so that it is workable and able to operate and provide services to as many people as possible, particularly when we're talking about getting people outdoors and active and giving them the experiences that we know are so valuable, particularly, in the psychology world. It does seem odd when some of the people who maybe need your services, your care, maybe there's reasons they're not getting vaccinated as well. So yeah, I think that's a real challenge.
Dom, a couple of weeks ago, there was a meeting of the heads of churches and various religions, I think Queensland heads, with the Deputy General of Queensland Health.
Yeah, right.
And one thing that did come out of that was a comment which is basically, at this time, so qualified at this time, Queensland weren't looking towards going down that Victorian road of declaring essential workers and mandatory vaccinations. So it was just there was an interesting part of that session to come out of that seemed to be the suggestion we won't be as what I would call draconian as Victoria has been, which I think would be good.
Yeah, it's interesting because it does seem like, even I was surprised when WA came out with such a strong situation for mandatory vaccination for their workforce, because I would have thought of all states, WA seems to be more relaxed than anyone, but they've certainly seemed to be dropping the hammer a bit at even this week. So yeah, I think that's trying to get their vaccination rates up and trying to give people that. It was spread out over quite a long period, I seem to think. I think I saw in the media reports they're talking about some of the stuff is by January, February next year, but still they're putting it out there to say if you want to keep doing these jobs, that's what you have to have. So yeah, but yeah, it's interesting if Queensland's not pushing that, because I think that obviously every time you hear the Premier or the Health Minister or the Chief Health Officer speaking, it's all about get vaccinated. That's the best way you can protect yourself and your community. So that does seem to be a big part of it. But I think that's obviously really how they're trying to encourage that in some of those other states. Really, like that's sort of it from the presentations. As I said, we will be working to an advocacy and work collaboratively with the government to try to work on all the issues and seek solutions. We'll keep engaging too with colleagues interstate to understand what's going on there and what we can learn there. But I mean, a key part of it is letting us know if there are issues you're hitting, please let us know. We need to know if as issues arise, or even if you think there's an issue that's coming up, yeah, we really want to know about it, because that's an important part of us being able to then have those conversations ahead of time rather than trying to deal with it later. I'd rather be getting in front of some of these issues and trying to flag it and really manage it if we can. So yeah, that's probably a key thing. If anyone has any issues, please let me know or let us know. It's not just about me. And yeah, if there's anything else. But does anyone else have any other questions, comments? I've lost my chat, so just having a look in there. No? Anyone? A couple of reminders. Outdoors Queensland Awards, of course. Next Friday, the 29th of October. Please feel free to join us via Facebook Live. Also, our next session of these will be in a fortnight on Friday, the 4th of November. We'd love to have you join us then as well. And also check out the resources that are on our website. So yeah, there's a whole swathe of resources on there for your information. But other than that, we might finish up there, and thank you very much for joining us again today. Don't forget about the awards next Friday evening, and just like to sign off with look after yourself, look after others, and look after the planet. Thanks for coming.
Cheers.